Hey guys, welcome to another video and thanks for clicking on this one. In this video, I just want to share something that I think is important to note in this particular market we are in. One of the things that you need to understand is that we are approaching a very, when I say seasonal period where there's generally a tendency for a stock market rally. And I think it is important to understand that. But before I get into that subject for today, I want you to think about, if you watched my last video where I talked about the stock market recap, one of the things I mentioned in that video was the fact that the sell-off that we saw was a very nice buying opportunity. And I actually mentioned to you that the Dow Jones index itself was at a very nice support region that was a decent buy if you were somebody who likes to buy the dip. Now, one of the reasons I personally love buying the dip is that what's the point of buying when it's expensive? I still dollar cost average, but I try to also combine timing the market. Now, when I say timing the market, I'm not timing by exiting my position. I'm timing my time, the periods in which I buy more of particular of some particular shares, whether it's an ETF, whether it's a stock. I try to do that as well. And those opportunities are generally when it is at a discount. So, and I'm going to share with you exactly what I drew, or at least the thing I showed on my screen the last time. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back. Please don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All that good stuff. It goes a long way. So let's get to it. Now, what you would see right here is the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. And this was what I actually had on the stock on that video. I literally drew this line, okay, which showed that we had a 4-point-something% drop. I need to actually pull it up right here. It was about 4.5 somewhere there percent drop. And to end the previous week, not this week that we just wrapped up, all right, the previous week. And I said in that video that this region that we're seeing, right, we're seeing a nice recovery of the index itself, which is generally a good thing. Again, if you want to see the trend of the market, just look at the whole index, right? So when you look at the index, it gives you a feel for what is going on. And that is exactly what I mentioned in that video by stating that we are really at the nice buying opportunity here, at least that I saw. And that week, I actually bought some Palantir. I didn't buy Nvidia because I still felt like Nvidia was still shaky, and truly it is still shaky. If you look at Nvidia stock, it's still kind of around the same price. I bought Microsoft. I bought some Meta, and ETF QQQ was another one I bought. And of course, I also bought a Palantir call. Now, why did I buy a Palantir call? One of the reasons why I bought that one was because honestly, I just felt it was too good to be true. The price was very decent. And at 157, at the time I bought it, it still dropped down to around 150, but I was very comfortable holding that call for the next 7 months or so. That was the call I bought. And that call actually printed around $400 and something, $430 something. Not a lot of money, right? But I knew that I was okay with that amount of profit that made me, and I exited it. Now, one of the things I always tell people is that, here's the thing. When you invest, you have to take risk. If you don't take risk, you don't make money. But one of the things that you try to do is to educate yourself and inform yourself about how the trends are, the stock market, the company itself, or the stock itself, to see how it performs. And of course, you try to use some technical analysis, which I'm not really an expert at, but I always try to use that knowledge to, again, aid in making good decisions. And I'm not perfect, but I've made some good decisions when it comes to doing this. So here's the deal. What we now saw for the week that we just wrapped up started around here. So somewhere from, let me actually draw this. So we restarted the week of today. Yeah, so that was 25th. Okay. And if I remember, let me look at the date just to make sure I'm saying the right thing here. Yep, 24th rather. So 24th was right there. Okay, and it was a short week. And one of the things that you need to remember is that the week was so short. We had the Thanksgiving week. We had, all the holidays. Stock market was literally for half a day. All of that. So, but from that 24th, we saw a very nice recovery that lasted a few days. And that was the thing that I want you to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, you have to realize that by starting the week of 24th up until there, that was about a 3.9, almost 2.95. So let's just call that almost 3% recovery. Now, the question is this actually sustainable? Or is this a fake out? Is this something that, you know, next week we're going to go back into the same pattern? Well, one thing I want you to understand is that the week is coming, the period in which the Feds are going to make a decision on the rates, right? December 9th and 10th is approaching, fast approaching. And that would definitely impact what happens in the coming weeks. Because remember, that's one of the big things, putting a lot of heavy drawdown on the market. And depending on, you know, what happens with that decision, we might see a nice rally, or we might see a nice buying opportunity again. I see it that way. So here's something that I want you to keep in mind. Remember, during the getting close to the Christmas period, New Year, Thanksgiving, all that, there's always a nice rally like this. But we have something different this time around, which is the rate that is the rate decision that needs to be made. That could play a big role in this. So I'm approaching the market cautiously. If you look at the stock, the fear and greed index, you would notice that it's actually somewhat in a, it's still in the fear, let me see, greed index, it's still in you know, it's still on the extreme fear region. All right, not really a great time to still presenting a nice opportunity to buy, right there. So it's still in this region, which is nice. It's that region right there. That is still a good place to buy. I would still buy in this region. I would say dollar cost average, all that stuff. But I try to avoid things like options specifically during times like this until there is a better, you know, direction as to what happens, especially with the decisions that the Fed needs to make. Just thought of sharing that with you. If you think this was helpful, please don't forget to drop a like on the video. It goes a long way, and I'd love to see you in a future one.